Lee versus Benny Boy. And we're going to be doing it on Dry Arabia with an Abbasid French matchup. I feel like it's been a hot second since I've seen this. And I wonder if it's like, it's kind of a combo of things, right? I think to some degree people are playing French a little less because, you know, it was fast becoming the most played Civ at the highest level because alongside Mongols before it, you know, this was just the de facto way to get quick wins. And then also the Abbasids were just kind of falling off the side of a cliff. They were becoming less desirable. The nerfs to berries hit them a lot harder, I'd say, than it hit the Delhi. Camels is still kind of a mystery that's being unraveled for a lot of players. But it's nice to actually see them being picked here, especially by Lenok, a player that I think was kind of, you know, a few months back, one of my most intriguing Abbasid players to watch, because I can still remember the way he used them in the 3v3 tournament that was hosted by Lidicor. It was actually really impressive. He was one of very few players that actually thought they were viable for 3v3 engagements on open maps. I think that was the first stage where people started to get like a peer into exactly how this Civ can be utilized in different ways. And the different ways are like something other than me be greedy eco boy. Like there are other things you can do. There are more aggressive approaches you can take with this Civ. And we've been seeing that even more recently with the Horseman spam, with the commitment into early Archer spam to counter out other people's aggression, into Rams, or even Outposts. Another element, people like Snoop have been doing. We saw Marino do it just yesterday in the Road to Wallalow, where he attempted to contain his opponent entirely off of Outposts. I actually love that this Civ is getting a little bit of aggression to it, because for a long time, when you've talked about the Abbasids, you talked about a Civ that just sat in their base, sang happy tunes, and only gave their people half rations. But there were a lot of people, because there were a lot of TCs. Let's just have to see if there's a lot of TCs in general in this game, because a change we have been seeing out of the French is that they have been building a lot more town centers these days. And this matchup, because we haven't seen it in a while, thinking back to how it functioned, like it was kind of tough to justify like hard committing it tonight. It's just because Spears was such a high value unit for the Abbasids. The reason is because it's much easier for an Abbasid player to defend against heavy knights early game than it is for pretty much any other Civ. The reason is that you very easily, because it's so cheap, get your hands on phalanx if you go into Iraqs. And the importance of phalanx is that when you chase after a knight, or if you brace on a knight, if you actually bait in a knight at all, it's much easier to stab them than it is with other Civs due to the fact that you increase the range of your spears via the phalanx tech. Speaking of techs, looks like it's going to be the standard build-up. One day I'll see a Chamber of Commerce again, and that's when I'll know it was a complete and utter misclick. Yeah, it's kind of a sad state of affairs for Chamber of Commerce. It's still bugged, right? Like it doesn't do what it says on the tin. I think one of the notable things is that originally it wasn't giving 30% additional resources on trade of gold, only on the other resources. And I think there were some other issues with it, if I remember correctly, as well. Yeah, so it's giving no bonus to trade value, and that gives the proper 30% that was meant to. And then I think on top of that, there was like an issue to do with French trade chips not working either. So even picking it on like a water hybrid or water heavy map was kind of funky because you still won't get the great value. Scouts early on are going to be a pain in the ass, but will be shifted away quickly. Nice shivs out there. Did do a lot of damage, so Lenok won't be able to return for additional aggression. Speaking of aggression, I'm expecting that to come out soon from the Muslim. Looks like he is researching the wheelbarrow. Now, this is my preferred approach. I think the best way to go about researching this is that you should be getting wheelbarrow when you're about half to two-thirds of the way through your tech up, depending on how many villages you use to make the school cavalry. It tends to give you the best value without sacrificing too much of your aggressive timing. I think compared to like just rushing it up the school cavalry, I'm trying to think if there's really any grand difference. Like you need to get a person out in the mill. No, I don't think so. I don't think, like, compared this to getting a mill and getting wheelbarrow before you start tech up makes no sense, but there's no reason for you to not start getting into wheelbarrow halfway through the tech up, especially when you consider that the French get a 30% discount on all their eco upgrades. So, both from feudal. Rax is going to be built up by Lenok. No move on the stone just yet, for good reason, actually. He He didn't get a good stone placement here. Oh, wow. That's kind of harsh, actually. Like, if he gets a TC here, it's phenomenal, but... And that's what the greedy people like me would be thinking. But the issue you have is, like, you have to get out here, first of all, and you're up against the French. So if he's pushing 1 or 2 knights, you're blocked out of stone entirely until you get at least 3 or 4 phalanx spearmen up. There you go. He'll get them up in the hard stats first. And that's what I was talking about. There you go. The phalanx, which increases your attack range by 100% for spearmen. Wow, 100%? Nerf that. That sounds... Well, calm down, folks. They're melee units. It's not broken. It's reasonable. But the cool thing about phalanx is it actually allows you to stab over the front line of spearmen. It actually makes spears for the Abbasids the best out of any civ, I'd say, in the game. The only one that can somewhat match it is the English in the late game due to their attack speed buffer. But the reason that they are so good is because these spearmen, like, you know, if you spread out a line, let's say we got this choke point here. And in this choke point, only a finite number of troops can attack in melee. Well, if you're the Abbasid, the finite number of troops that could attack is about double to your opponent who doesn't have phalanx because they stab over the first wave. It's pretty strong. We don't get to see it so often, but I think another way that it matters as well is, like, it's very efficient even on open battlefields because when you're charging in with, say, 40 spearmen on each side, obviously both sides aren't usually going to have 40 spearmen, but if they did, what happens is that the phalanx player, the Abbasid player, although his line will have to spread out a little bit, some of them won't actually just do a full thin line wrapping around each other to attack. Some of them will just be standing there attacking straight away. While your opponent, his melee force will have to spread out entirely in a full, like, one depth line formation. And that takes time because obviously you start in a formation box in the center and then have to spread out to the wings. Seems like someone's trying to raise an interesting point around the HRE with spears with buffs as an argument of being better. I'd say even then they somewhat struggle because in, like, mass quantities, the issue is the spread out once again. Now, marching drills does offset that a little, but I think the extra free melee armor in the late game, like, compared to the ability to stab over your opponents. Because here's the thing, like, if we start getting to all the details, okay, you want to say that HRE are amazing because they get free extra melee armor on the spears. What do the Abbasids get, folks? What's this thing right here? Boot camp. That health increase, it makes it feel like you've maybe got a 1 melee armor increase overall in comparison, just because the increases in health and armor that you get by default as the game goes on. Like, yeah, I don't think anyone can convince me that the Abbasid spears aren't the best spears in the game. Like I said, the only one that maybe can compete is the English. But the English is situational in that it requires you to be on the defensive because you need the attack speed aura. A 50% increase in attack speed makes you pretty competitive. It's being competitive. They're not getting aggressive right now. Catches the transition to archers coming out. Lee, with that space, with that pushover, I got to give him credit actually the way he done this. This was pretty crafty. He pushed all the way to the Muslim's base, so he's able to get the second TC and gather up enough stone for a third town center as well, understanding that in the coming minutes, it's probably unlikely he'll be allowed to be back in this area. Now the spills just back away. Single one not lost. The Muslim did go for a second town center himself. We haven't talked about that yet. He shifted out into the deer sign. Oh, holy mother of Bambi. Okay. He got the beautiful, holy, rare double deer stack here. And I think he got one that was better than Lennox. Lennox, in more than one way, because Lennox can't play into this area because same situation as with the stone. It's too far off. You'll get exposed to a raid out of knights. I like what he's doing here instead. He's going to actually opt to gather the berries, but also sticks to the initial wood line. The cool idea here is he'll chop through both sides, and then he'll daisy chain his base in. So the cool thing about this is, like, you want to try and spread out your TCs a bit, but one of the big issues the Abbasids have is as you spread out your TCs, well, you have to daisy chain them back in. And that offers up an opportunity for someone to, like, torch an area to then break your golden age. The cool thing about what Lennox has done here is he has spread out his TC a little bit to be more efficient with his villagers as they push out and they don't drain their initial resources too fast. But he's also doing it in a way that the area that he's going to connect through, he's mutually tapping out. And it will give him a larger base that's still going to be safe. Muslim. How are we looking on the count? I don't think he's going for max aggression now. He might be rushing castle, which is an interesting choice to do up against the Abbasids. Because the dynamics get a little bit skewed when you reach up there. Like, in fairness, you do get your hands on Arbalatriz, but then the Abbasids get their hands on mass siege in the field with Mangonels and Swingons. And I think even with their nerfed build speeds and the nerfs to Mangonels over time, like, I can still see the Abbasids feeling quite strong, especially if they're heavily reliant on spears as well at that stage. Just because you can't rely on Arbalatriz to clean up, and the Knights can't dive in either. I also need to see how Lenok is going to go up. I expect Culture Wing, but we have seen a few players starting to diversify into Military Wing. Knights riding in. Lenok will back away. Greedy boy. No textiles. What's this, Big Lee? Well, I mean, in fairness, folks, for most civs, like, textiles cost 3 villages in terms of resource. For an Abbasid player, it costs 6 villages? That's a rip-off. Because they only have to pay 25 food per. How dare they get amazing discounts. Oof, the Muslim's hand got discounted here as well. This horseman push through is catching him off guard. Needs to be careful about the way he engages here. Archers just try and trade out the spears, but Knight's being kept at bay. Heavy damage coming in, actually, to Muslim. Off point with the micro there, and he's actually going to get enveloped here. The spear stabbing in, can't quite finish him. It looks like he'll keep the Knights alive, at least a few of them. Overall, reasonable trade when you consider the initial Knights going down, a few archers as well. Slight edge to the Muslim, but not as big an edge as it should be when you consider how many troops he is pushing right now. My, oh my. Benny boy. Oh, where's the siege engineering? Because this would be a pristine time to have your hands on a ram. Feels like it'd be too delayed now, though, by the time you get towards that. I do feel like Lenok will be protected, and Lenok, speaking of that protection, he did extend himself to the south side, walled this area in because he wants that double deer stack. And the berries at the backside, so doesn't have to worry about running out of food anytime too soon. In fact, I'm expecting both players to start looking up towards Castle Age soon. The Muslim is getting to a point where it just seems feasible based on your natural scalability without sacrificing military push. Lenok is a bit of a bigger puzzle for me right now. His troop push is very, very weak at this stage. And yeah, he's trying to double down to fix it now with the racks and the stables. Archers in the meantime moving in. Other 2 villagers going down. Lee, he's fallen behind, folks. The Muslim has a 13 villager lead, and this is 2 versus 3 TCs, and somewhat it comes down to the way that Lenok built this third TC in an aggressive location. Now, we said we didn't mind it because of the way it's going to chain his base a little bit later. But he's not at that stage yet. Right now, it's just an exposed TC on the front line that could encourage a little bit of ram play out of the Muslim, which is exactly what he's heading for right now with the siege engineering coming through. And look at that. A nice little stealth forest to build it in as well. And he can't stop this either. I think by the time he realizes this is happening, a ram's going to be up. And oh my knightlyhood. 11 Royal Knights just waiting in this tree line as well. This could be a remarkably good bait out of the Muslim if he plays this right. Lenok might suspect that there are more Knights coming and have been coming, but he doesn't see the count exactly. So he'll feel confident that this is a good enough force. And it really is not. 9 Spearmen and 8 Horsemen against this many Archers and Knights are just going to get washed. Knights do reveal, partially. Baiting is going to cost Lenok 1 Horseman here, and the ram does come out, so it looks like he might have to back away. I think this TC's going down, folks. Not much he can do to protect it. He was trying to actually house in to actually get the Golden Age effect from it. Don't worry, no reason to come out to this area anymore. That TC is going to be going down. The torch damage pretty heavy here. Nice commitment out to Muslim. Is going to shut his opponent out, and Lenok, far from out of this game, but finding himself in quite the bind because the Muslim might just consider castling up right now when he sees that you're still too weak to fight him. The alternative, doubling down on fuel aggression to end the game now. Archers striking in. And mistakes have been made here, folks. Lenok, he chopped 1 tree too many. Oh, the Rams, they can shuffle their way around. I actually like what Demuslim was doing there originally. Just go for the house. Lenok is pop capped right now. He doesn't have enough housing. Yeah, you better spam, boy. You better spam. Good thing he invested that many villages as well. Otherwise, he might get blocked at certain points due to losing houses on the forefront. Ram baiting in the horseman. Bad fight for Lee to take. Second Ram in play. Wouldn't be surprised if we go up to 3, maybe 4 to Muslim. He's reaching up now. This force is big enough to do some serious damage to Lenok's base while also allowing him to feel comfortable about taking up now. And that's exactly what Benny Boy's going to do on his way up. And it looks like we are going to be getting some Guild Hall action. Going to give himself that scalability into hyper late game situation. Understanding that, you know, it's nice to have that extra 1-up, but in this state of affairs, like, this game could pivot back the other way soon. Lenok does have the ability to hard invest into a never-ending pile of crap in the fuel age just to keep him afloat. And that would definitely kick the can down the road. Rams trying to get through the racks. Torches coming out. Ooh, no, no, no. You can't stop it. So another rack's going down. That's minus 150 wood. These Rams paid for themselves, and they're still being allowed to do things. Whoops. I'm glad he finally noticed. That was going to get a little bit worrisome there. The Muslim fully backing off. Now that he's teched up, Lenok feels confident. He's like, okay, you didn't keep pushing troops, so I'm going to push you to the limit. Night Clash coming in. Spearman blocked out of the fight initially by that amount of horsemen. Nice guard coming out there from the Muslim to make sure his archers aren't exposed. I actually love this micro right now, Ben. He's doing it intentionally to protect, and now the upgrades come through the veterans, so he can turn around and fight. Several horsemen going to be going down. A good trade, even if he loses 1 or 2 knights. Always retreating away. Covers his retreat well, and Lenok now hard stuck from behind. Will look to tech up with the culture wing. Still over a minute out, though. That minute could lead to him being very exposed here. The Muslim has been gathering hard on the stone folks. He's on his way back in, this time with a keep. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he drops a siege workshop at the front line as well to go into Trebs. Lenok, this is not what I would call a heavily armed composition. It will not be able to dive underneath keeps unless he wants to sacrifice a lot of troops. Here we go. Next to the secondary TC as well. Oh, dear, oh, dear. And Lenok, whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, this keeps happening. Lenok was pop capped again. I think he's getting overstressed, overbeared by Demuslim here. It's starting to show. Like, cracks are emerging in the painting. The painting of the magnificent Lee. There's going to be a lot of cracks in this TC. As it's beginning to crumble. Tries to move in at a choke point with the horseman. Ambitious, but that can block off the knights. He blocks the knights off. Could be a big fight, but he doesn't want to take it. He's hesitant right now. The spears could have got good value there, but instead he backs away. Lenok, he doesn't want to fight without the tech up. And Demuslim dodges death. That right there could have cost him the entire knight battalion. But instead, he's going to be fine. And I wonder, I actually think that Lenok, because he doesn't know whether it's a Royal Institute or a Guild Hall, that might have been in the forefront of his mind. There might be Royal Bloodlines coming out, and if there is, even spears will not trade out well here. And thus he backs up, and little does he know what we know, which is it's a Guild Hall. There's no possibility of these knights getting that chunky. And a missed opportunity for Lenok to take a phenomenal fight. Instead, Demuslim going to continue to take these fights as he dives in. Archers peppering into their targets. Mangonel shots coming out, is at least going to push Demuslim back, at least for a moment before he re-engages. Knights being thrown into this mass here to try and stop the keep from going up. Forcing the fight before Lenok gets his upgrades coming through. Still 20 seconds out from getting veterancy on those spearmen. Barely any left, under 10 now. Knight count, still enough to start cleaning up more villages, and the archers, they're going to be thrown away. The effort is worth the investment. It's the end of that. Look at the eco difference now. Demuslim over 40 ahead of Lenok, and Lenok only with 1 TC. No reboom coming out from the Abbasids. Good reason. It's got too much strain, too much demand right now. Muslim seemingly waypointing archers into their death. Don't know if I'd volunteer for this operation. Has got the siege workshop at the front that we were talking about, so Treb should be coming out soon. And on top of that, he has gone into the monastery, so we'll start gathering up the relics, and it should be 4 relics for free because Lenok has no way out of his base right now. Lenok is looking pretty stuck at this point because his resources are drying up fast. The issue I see for him is all the finite food sources have ran out, so now he needs a farm transition. And that farm transition is a heavy burden at this stage when you're playing from behind like this. Especially when you're clearly exposed, like you haven't walled yourself in a way that protected. And this TC really shows that weakness. He's doubling down on his recovery, and as a result, Muslim might be able to expose him on that front. Knights, in the meantime, just trying to chase off the horsemen as they wrap around, but the extension bases are coming out, and the Muslim sets up a second keep, and that's going to be his reserve line to push from. Isn't willing to gamble on a super forward frontal base that he could lose very quickly. One treb is not going to be fast here for Lenok. Another area he has to hard invest into. Gold reserves are at least good for him. But they won't last forever. Horseman in onto the villager line as the Muslim court gathering even more stone. Unlimited stone in this situation, it feels like. He's got enough to build a keep line all the way around Lenok's base. Knights will cut off the retreat away from the horsemen. Will cut them down and make sure there's no raids. And after that, Lenok is once again hard stuck. And to make sure that's the case, Ben, he says, nice walls. Let me help you with that whole protection thing. I promise I won't ever delete them or build a gate on them. Let me just build walls here as well. It's for your own safety, Lenok. It's for your safety. Oh my, oh my. And it's because he has attention on the north side. So I think the Muslim wants to condense this. He doesn't want to risk Lenok actually expanding to the south and breaking out. He wants to draw all attention to the center mass. And right now, the Muslim is not paying attention to that center mass, as it looks like the trebuchets are going to get rid of the keep because he never bothered to repair it. Well, that's a big whoopsie. Oops. Knights, in the meantime, still chasing after Lenok. More wolves coming in, though. The Muslim, he has created that choke point now in the center where he's got his backup keep near the sacred site. Now hard pushing into the Arbalatriers. Arbalatriers that aren't going to be insanely valuable here. I'm actually quite surprised by this choice by the Muslim, but I don't think he sees what Lenok is doing. So I think he's just anticipating that it's going to be a switch up into man-at-arms, considering that the Muslim was just pushing archers. So logically, Lenok shouldn't want to keep pushing spears. Little does he know, Lenok is already wise to this plan. The mind games are clearly in full swing here. Because although the Arbalatriers are a damn good unit for the French, in this situation, it would have been more cost efficient, maybe more valuable to just keep pushing archers. Maybe Muslim has different ideas for his wood supply. Maybe he wants to get into the siege a little bit harder here. Because he was lacking with that initial investment. Another keep going up a little bit further back than the last one, and that's going to set up the stables. And to Muslim, well, this game is live. It is, of course, after the Rotor Red Bull Wallol game happened when he was up against Mister and he got zerged through by Imperial Aged Knights. And I'm starting to wonder if that is the timing on Ben's mind. If he just wants to Death Ball Knights and flood through. They're pretty damn effective. Speaking of those Knights, sneaking in, targeting onto the Villies. No pullback yet as Lenok tries to rush across. It looks like that's good value right there for the Muslim, killing off 4 or 5 villages and losing nothing for it. Lee, he did continue to reboom at the back with this third TC. So eco-wise, still in catch-up mode, but getting there. 85 to the 138 to Muslim, still with a clear and definitive lead in the eco department. And you can see that by the income per minute. The Muslim almost at pop cap, so he's ready to go soon. He could go up as well. Curious to see what the choice is going to be. I actually quite like the idea of going Imperial and then going. Simply because right now, Lenok is running on fumes. He's running out of resources. And the opportunity to exploit him on this farmland transition is now passing. Something that the Muslim... there's no way he's not aware. There's no way he's not aware that this is happening because it just makes sense at this stage. Lenok has been in his base for a long time and he's never come out. So where else would he be getting food? It's the only logical explanation. And the Muslim, instead of opting to take that opportunity to dive in early, he instead goes to the safe choice and will now make his way up into Imperial. Nice riding in again. Spearmen are there to meet them. Stand 2 down, almost gets a third. The Muslim yoinking away all the resources, says this all belongs to me now, Lee. fight me or beg for mercy, but either way, you're going to have to do something for me. Right now, it seems like it's die for me. As this outpost attempt by Leenock, oh, it's ambitious. I'll give him that. You don't even need the Knights. The Knights are overkill at this stage. I mean, the keep alone would have killed every single one of those villages. Oh, and the creep and keep. The Muslim. Now, Leenock has got wood reserves to the south, but he doesn't want to use them because it will open up a new front. He's going to fight tooth and nail for this. Tech upgrade comes out. Leenock needs to go. He needs to push him away. The Muslim will cancel the keep and back up here. Not willing to sacrifice the Knights just yet. Still hiding the fact he has Arbor the Trees. He wants to see a reason to reveal them. I actually quite like this approach because right now, if he just reveals it, then Lee doesn't change. He's like, okay, I'll just keep pushing spears. If Leenock continues at this rate, and he's like, okay, I need man-at-arms. He pushes out 10 or 20. You can catch him off guard already having the counter in place. Trip count up to 3. It takes so long to get through these keeps as well. The crazy part is that the Muslim has extracted so much value now from Leenock's share of the map that he doesn't care about losing one or two of these keeps. Like, by the time you realize what he's doing up here, I think this is going to be half of this big outcropping gone. And that's basically 2 worth. And, oh, the wall low. He tried to yoink the relic. Tried for the wall low. Nice play by the Muslim, considering he already has the other 4. In fact, where did he bank them? Monastery. There it is. Wait. This is Delta Force Monk coming in. Mission complete. Requesting extraction. 10-4 Monkey Boy. Extraction on the way. I can't believe how casual that escape is. Oh, wow. I'm struggling now for Leenock. He's moving out for the stone. The problem is he's already contested on it. A back keep goes up. The Muslim is never ending in the keep department. Oh, I don't know about this. Leenock makes his way up into Imperial. But he can't really keep up the demand of what's going to come next. Like, he can maybe afford 1, possibly 2 fights. After that, it needs to lead into resource gains or he's in trouble. The Muslim, he was waiting for this. It's finally there. Raw Bloodline's coming through in 2 seconds, and that's where he can start going. Crossbow stirrups also being researched a long way off. The bigger detail as these Knights just got a hell of a lot more chunky, up at 364 HP each. Brace out from the spears. Only under 1 or 2 here. March in and around. Archers and Arbor of the Trees there to counter this out. And they'll wrap around with the Knights going on top of the siege. Treb's being targeted down 1 by 1. Knights lasting long enough to do it as well. And the spears, they're barely tickling anymore. Leenock looks like he miscalibrated a little hit. Looks like he couldn't afford the demand of this war. Doesn't have enough infrastructure to replace the army. This really feels like it could be it. I mean, how many racks does he have? He's got barely any, right? Folks, Leenock has 7 racks, 2 stables, 5 racks. That's not going to do it. That's not going to be good enough. And the massacre! The massacre! So many villages here, but not for long. The Muslims here to make sure of that. Chases them in. Still no textiles for Leenock. Still no fun for Leenock. As the Muslim is the one having his way. He's the guy at the party that always gets to choose which board game you're going to play next. And it's always the one you don't want to play. It's always Monopoly. It can never be Catan. He won't stop. The Sprinkles as well are in trouble. Medical Center's here to try and help, but that's not good enough. You need some repairs coming out from the villages, but it's just not going to be there. And Raw Bloodlines, that's the timing, folks. That's the power of it. You see the Muslim, he intentionally waited for exactly that. As soon as it's complete, he doesn't even wait around for the crossbow stirrups because it doesn't matter. As long as you get that ridiculous 30% increase on your cavalry, you're good to go. You're ready to rock, and you can dive as deep as is necessary to get rid of your opponent, which is exactly what he does here, beating out Leenock. And it is going to be Lee on the Mongols. Ooh, this one could be very different. We just watched a game between these 2 players where De Muslim was, of course, playing the French in that one as well, but Leenock got a much more defensive civ. It was the Abbasids. This time around, well, the tables could be turning. they could be spinning. The whole room could be spinning here because Lenok is a shock and awe type player with his openings. He's actually one of the best players at consistently blocking people off of their gold when he plays Mongols, and that's going to be his goal here. Against the French, a phenomenally effective goal at that. Let's see if it works out because the gold that the Muslim has opted for is exposed. He has got reserve gold that is somewhat safe, and that has now been scouted out by Lenok. But as he wraps around and sees that this is exposed out in the open, should be a natural choice to outpost into outpost to block on the gold and the secondary wood line. He's definitely going for that play when you see him open with the racks. So this should be between 4 and 6 spear pushed entirely. And one villager will shift out shortly. The Muslim, did he play? Yeah, he did play 2 scouts. That's good. I was going to say, it's very important to have 2 scouts. Now, I know there's some discussions going on recently about whether you should be going 2 scouts, and I think there was a lot of misinformation coming out, and that some people were making the point that you only really go 2 scouts if you really need the sheep, or you're up against a roost player. I wholly disagree. There are so many more reasons to go for a double scout. So for a start, like most civs use sheep to some extent or another. The only one who can often go without is English, but some of the builds we've been seeing rely on sheep anyway. So taking extra sheep away from your opponent is always good, even if you don't need it yourself. It's also good to have a reserve resource safely banked underneath your TC for when crap hits the fan. Now, that's food-related details aside. Let's not forget the importance of scouting. This is going to be a pristine example of exactly that. Because the Muslim has 2 scouts, he has a higher opportunity of seeing what his opponent is doing here. And I think he doesn't even need a scout in position to know what might be coming when a Khan turns up at your gold vein. It looks like as he pulls back in, well, the information's going to come too late. And maybe in some ways there's going to be an argument, well, this wasn't a great example, Pigeon. He didn't spot the raid. Yes, but he had a much higher chance because he had double scout in the field than if he had a single bloody one that was responsible for both bringing back sheep and spotting maneuvers by his opponent. And also, I would point out, like, in this specific matchup, it's like a levied choice because the issue is, like, you want to scout these early aggressive moves, but you also want to optimize your patterns to pick up as many sheep as possible because you are up against a Mongol player, and Mongol players need sheep. That's right. Not having sheep is bad. I'm going to stop. I thought long and hard. I literally was going to make that comment straight away originally, and I sat on it for 10 seconds, and I was like, it's really bad. It's really bad. Don't do it. I done it. And Lenok is now doing the thing too. In with the spears. Tech up at least complete for the Muslim. Not a lot of gold though. And he's probably looking to get that gold to use onto the wheelbarrow tech, but instead he's going to be forced to invest it into one knight here because he wants to play midfield and intercept any reinforcements because he knows there's still a villager wiggling his tushki around in this area. Trying to get some more pain in the ass outposts up. Archer range now being prepped, as you do when you're up against spears like this. In the meantime, scouts moved across to just assault the Uvu. Because Lenok, he has kind of reached that point where he probably wants to stop pushing spears, especially considering he hasn't teched up yet, and his opponent is likely to start pushing out archers. Knight. Oh, no! Okay, that was a lot more damage than needed to happen there, folks. If you're wondering why the Knight just turned around and acted like it's mating season and he saw another lovely stallion out in the fields, it's because when you charge and a spearman braces, they stun you at first, and when you're stunned, neither unit does anything. But then you also get rooted afterwards, which means you stuck on the spot and your opponent is free to attack you, which is why that knight just stood there clueless for so long. Archer at least to be able to get rid of that initial spear. Looks like he's going to have to back off. This is very important, by the way. Really well played by the Muslim. Remember what we highlighted at the beginning of this. Like, the goal in Lenok is to block gold. This is a very hard generation to do so on, though. Because although one gold vein is exposed out in the middle of a field, the other one is actually quite naturally defended by all these tree lines. These tree lines that can be exploited by either player. But the issue for Lenok is because he has to start off on the left side, it delays his timing to exploit the right. And it gives enough time for the Muslim to make this play. Really big thumbs up for him. It was a very quick switch out of Ben. And had he delayed by an extra 30 seconds, I think that outpost is up and he's stuck in this game. Spearman. Ooh. Scout's almost done enough to set it on fire. Archer's now pulling across the field. This could actually enable him to burn the Uvu. Just a few archers here could really cripple Lenok. He's only got, what, 4, 5 spearmen max? Yeah, I think it's 4 now. Villager's been spotted as well. I actually like what Ben's doing here. It's quite incredible the way that he's just going super aggressive with like 3 archers, and it's going to be good enough. Because he understands what this play is about. When Mongol players commit to this type of play, they do enough to shut down your eco so they can go eco themselves. So they're very much min-maxing their military force. They're not over-booming it. They're saying, okay, I only need this many troops to outpost rush you, no more. And as a result, just a small quantity of archers like this completely discounts anything Leenock can now do in this game. So that's an Uvu burn. That's 150 wood gone. More archers coming in. If I'm the Muslim, I'm thinking about a blacksmith right now and possibly siege engineering. Sounds very overzealous, but like there is an opportunity here. Seems he's going to back off for the moment. Interesting choice considering that Leenock, although he's building in stables now, it would take a little while to get into that, but seems like the Muslim doesn't want to sacrifice a single troop. Cool thing that Ben could be going for as well with the midfield control for the moment is pro scouts, considering he does have 4 scouts. But I think actually his intent is just to use them as cannon fodder front line for torching down outposts, but then also tanking any sort of charge in so his archers aren't exposed. It's quite an interesting choice, actually. Usually, the way the dynamics of this matchup works, by the way, is that when the Mongol player outpost rushes the French player, if it doesn't work, and they build up this many scouts, they'll then torch down the outpost because the scouts heal over time, and then after that, they go into pro scouts. But as it stands right now, Muslim, because he's only now getting back on the gold, will start off the wheelbarrow. Still has the option to come back for pro scouts afterwards, though. Ardent Spearman pushing in. Overzealous right there from Leenock. Will cost him dearly. He has to back away. Apologies to the stream that is now watching ad time as someone decided to redeem that. That was evil. For a reminder, if you do want to watch me live and you're watching on YouTube, I do stream regularly, and if you're sub there, you don't have to worry about someone redeeming the ad time. Why do I have that as a challenge? Speaking of challenges, this could get quite challenging for Leenock. You can see what the Muslim's doing. You know what he's thinking about next with this many scouts out in the field. It should be obvious to Leenock as well. Leenock able to back away just in time to Khan. That would have been a costly loss. The Muslim needs to be a little bit careful. He wanted to torch down the Uvu again. The problem he now has is that you could get some gap close out of the arrow. Nice maneuver away though. Ben getting out of range just in time so that Leenock's maneuver arrow wouldn't enable him to kill them off the spears because he wouldn't be able to block them off. More Chivalry coming out soon for the Muslims. Interesting to be researching Chivalry when you don't have a single knight in the field. Showing his intent to still play towards them as the game goes on. And a secondary TC coming out now from Ben. This has been really cool to watch as an opening, actually. It's very different because he still hasn't gone for the pro scouts. And he relied on them as just kind of a frontline harass tool against the Mongols, which is a very weird thing to be saying, but it's worked out brilliantly because look what's happened to Leenock. He still hasn't set up the pastures despite the fact he's got an Uvu right next to his base. Instead, he's kind of doubled down. He had to go into the stable as well. He had to stay in feudal longer. And now he has to go out onto the deer with an amassment of villages. This is going to leave him fairly exposed. That's a fair point, actually. Chivalry for maybe the one knight. I don't see that one knight, though. Did little knighty die? Oh, he's been sitting inside. Okay, there you go. That's why we can't. The pluses should have given it away. But Chivalry for a single knight does seem a bit funky. But if he plans to go into more, which we can now see he is, it makes total sense. And he is going into a lot more, folks. That's the triple stable play right there. School of Cavalry plus the extra 2. And remember, because you built the School of Cavalry, instead of taking 35 seconds, it only takes 29 seconds to push each knight. Oh my, oh my. The archer count is actually good enough to deal with the spears as well. This is very worrying right now for Leenock. He's all in. If he fails this assault, the Muslim can either just rush his base or boom up the castle for free and then come for his base. And Leenock, either way, is stuck behind. So this has to work. Double ram. Pushing in. Another archery range being built up by the Muslim. Villagers. Looking to back off here. The archers are still waiting inside, though, so the villagers are going to remain exposed. But even without textiles, he's able to get away. And the Rav's now targeting onto that extension TC with only 2,400 HP. Can't last too long. Spearman. Oh, that's some freebies. No, wood. Shoulda, woulda, couldas for Ben. because he can't repair that. Left to Garrison inside. Might be forced to fight here. Scouts need to find a way to start torching on this Ram. They need to do it sooner. He's going to lose the TC. Push through from Lenok, wrapping around. There's so many horsemen, so many spears right now. The maneuver arrow just to make sure he can shift back and forth as he goes around the other side of the town center. This one might be going down. He's on the wood trying to keep it alive. It's going to be tight, but he needs more villagers working. He needs it now. Or he needs to torch one of these down. Villagers. Oh, he keeps it alive. And the horsemen are distracted. They're going after the archers right now. And what are these knights doing? Half the time, they're not even attacking. He's out of wood again, and the TC goes down. Lenok gets it. Ben is infuriated right now. And he should be. The AFK time on the knights humping each other near the Rams. The villager pool not going optimally as they clambered over each other to get in position. These details added up. But you can't take anything away from Lenok. That was well played. And now Lenok, we said that play had to work out. It goes better than I even could have imagined. Because now he's the player that can think about Castle Age. Why can he think about Castle Age? Why can the Muslim not do so as easily? Because the Muslim built enough military infrastructure as if he had 2 TCs. And he did. For a moment. For a very brief moment in this game. And it looks like he's going to try to do that again. But that delay could just enable Lenok to go up. We'll see if he wants to double down right now. He's got a decent amount of horsemen, but heavily injured as well. He went for his second TC. What? Now, Lenok, a lot of Mongol players will go for multi-TCs these days. Lenok has to be one of the most consistent early TCers for the Mongols I have seen in the last few months. He does this at ridiculously early times, and I've seen it sting him on a few occasions, but more often than not, it works out for him because it's so unexpected here. So instead of going for a Castle Age up, Lenok, realizing now that Muslim is hard stuck here in this age, he splits his resources between continued aggression and now eco-booming up off of a second town center as the Mongols. And this is so crafty as well. The way he's using the horsemen. The Muslim rebuilds his forces, but he's playing defensive. He's chasing them away, and he can never reach because the horsemen are able to move faster. This time, he'll go for a more defensive TC. Learns his lesson the hard way. It's kind of crazy to think about as well, because like there wasn't that much more value for going for this TC over the back one, outside of like less idle time walking out there to build. You can argue the wood situation, but like mainly he done this for the berries. You can see that clearly by where the TC was located. Had he done it back here, berries and deer are better off. Because of his choice to put it on the front, now Lenok is the only one better off. Only 2 villages behind the Muslim. Now, of course, as the French, you'll build a slight lead via your production time only being 17 seconds as opposed to the 20. But I am concerned about the boom timing that's going to occur here. Lenok could very quickly find himself reaching up to castle, and should he do so, that's when his eco is going to look a lot more dominant in multiple ways. His ability to push out his monks quicker via the double production of the Uvu, in conjunction with the fact that you get the step readout, it gives an extra 50% drop of a gold. Yeah, this is where Ben might find himself very quickly playing from behind. In fact, I'd say he's very clearly behind right now. Still trying to recoup military. If you can get a good raid in, a damn good raid here, could completely throw Lenok's plans. Outpost trying to go up. Enough knights here to defend. Bad fight for Lenok to be taken. Will back away. Spearmen are now coming though. And in a stealth forest as well, the maneuver arrow. Oh no, Muslim is surrounded. Tries to back away. Nice step to the side, but a little bit greedy. Lenok, instead of taking 1 or 2, he's tried to surround to get the complete wipe. He might still get the wipe anyway. Chases in onto the archers. Heavy damage on a lot of these horsemen. The spearmen in the meantime are starting to clean up. Knights falling one by one, flopping down here. A raid into the base of Lenok in the meantime. Knights are matched up against the spears here though. They haven't found their targets just yet. Well, I say that, he actually did get some at the front of the base. Oh my god, the village is dead here! It looked like Lenok pulled most of them back, but he didn't pull them back fast enough. A good raid in by Muslim, an assault on 2 fronts, and he's the one yielding the advantage right now. But Lenok can bounce this back with the remaining horsemen if he targets onto the villages. Villages that do have textiles now. So they're going to be a lot harder to kill. And I think that does mean that Lenok is the one that gets the short end of the stick here. The Muslim will be 10 eco units ahead. Neither of them looking that comfortable for a tech up yet. Oh my, oh my. And these horsemen this time, they're getting so weak in the health pool. Like, it might be difficult to use them again. In fact, they're blocked off. Oh no. He could actually just body block them with the archers right now. Instead, he goes for the extra shots. That's going to be worthwhile. Khan goes down. GG. Nah, I'm kidding. Remaining horseman heavily injured. Lenok. This is the worrying part for me about what Lee has done here. If you see his resources, you can see that he's actually accrued a lot of gold. Enough for a tech up. I think Lenok wanted to tech up when he raided into the Muslim's base, but then had to reinvest militarily when he was getting hit on his eco line. Not only did that force him to invest more resources in feudal age units, but it was his food line that was being assaulted. So that went idle, and also he lost some villages there. That's what put him back, and that's why Lenok is not rushing castle right now, despite looking at his goal and seeing a situation where it seems like that was the goal. Muslim, as a result of that choice, is now very comfortable. Will begin to wall himself in to make sure no more raids come his way, and if he wants, he could easily rush up now. I think he might just renew the assault, though. You have heavy cavalry, your opponent doesn't. And although he keeps pushing these spearmen, it feels like they haven't been getting the best of value so far. At least, not in the last two engagements. Before that, sure, they had some great value super early on. But even then, the Archer Ball came out so quick from the Muslim, it counted it out. And it feels like the only thing that's been doing the work now for Lenok are these horsemen. Horsemen that are going to find some work right here. But the villages, with those textiles, a little bit too chunky. Archers, overly ambitious here. March out from the horsemen. Bad trade again for Lee. About to get worse. Knights march in. And the wraparound. Big assault coming in here. Brace out from the spears. Horsemen try to engage in the archers. Archers targeting down those spears as he pulls back with the knights. Trying to be optimal here. Min-maxing the health pool of his royal boys. And that's going to be a rout again. Lenok is in a bit of trouble here. He's at least going for the tech up, but the Muslim isn't going for a tech up. He's reinvesting. The reason this is going to be problematic for Lee is if the Muslim realizes what's happening here. If he sees how easily he killed this army off and how little is behind it, he might choose to rush Lenok's base. In fact, that's the play I want to see right now. Blacksmith, siege, yeah, that's the play he's making. Ben understands fully. And this is where you kind of have to switch up your strategy. This is where you have to change your approach in these situations. What Lenok done here was a textbook throwaway forced to delay. It was very obvious what he was doing. Like, I have God vision, you know, you can argue that all you want. These guys have played so much of the game. They understand the times. They understand the feelings and moves here. This looked like a throwaway, even if we couldn't see the tech bar, even if we couldn't see what Lenok was up to back at his base. It seems also apparent that when you throw away your troops in a bad fight like that, it's simply to delay and buy time. And as a result, the Muslim is going all in feudal. A move that we've been seeing more frequently these days. And, you know, this is the issue of the way Lenok played this. Even if he comes through the other side, the Muslim was able to read it far too easy. And it's why I'm always an advocate for like, spinning up or changing around your early game play and your mid game play in terms of, like, these pivotal points. So the way I like to compare it, like, I make a lot of poker comparisons these days because I do watch a decent amount of poker in my spare time. But, like, there's a logic in poker where you can very easily play against a player that only 4 bets or all-ins, aces, or kings, right? Like, when people have good hands and they only play high bets when they have good hands, it's easy to beat them. It's all about what we call variance. You need to mix up your strategy so it's not obvious to your opponent. You know, if you decide to all-in with Jack 9 suited, that's a weird play, but it implies to your opponent that you have a good hand. And there are situations to do that viably. Like, I wouldn't say you'd always all in, but you might 4-bet a really bad hand simply to, like, mix up the way you approach these hands so you're less predictable. And to relate that back to the game, what we're talking about here, when people keep throwing away their armies the way Lenok did, it's too predictable. It's very obvious what you've done because he didn't even try to pull away. He didn't try to look for a wraparound. He literally just clashed with the Muslim intentionally. And now Ben has backed up. The rush in didn't work out. He did go in for the siege engineering. The timing's slightly off for him. But now to Muslim looking like he should get his own tech up for free. And also with a 15-point villager lead. And already transitioning into mass farms on the backside. Nice riding in. Nice move here by the Muslim. This can be quite predictable play. Most Mongol players will try to sneak outposts in the midfield on Dry Arabia. On most open maps, most maps in general, because Yam is so important for you. Especially when you're up against a dynamic force like this. Like, you're facing off against these knights. They're going to move fast. You have to be just as quick. Speaking of being just as quick, 1.8 when charging. Good God. Not able to get close enough to do some damage there, though. Nice little strike in. Another 3 villagers 6 feet under for Lenok. Lenok starting to move forward now with his lances. Tech up not coming out yet from the Muslim. The Muslim looks like he's going for pop cap before he goes up, and I like this approach. It's another area people have got much better at doing. Just let's keep in mind, like, if you think about the timings, if the Muslim just immediately tried to castle age up, by the time he's doing it, by the time he's building it up, maybe 4 lancers are diving his base, and he doesn't have enough military force to stop that. But now with this quantity of military force, with the high quantity of Royal Knights he has out in the field, it is going to be the Royal Institute he chooses. I like this choice. More stables as well. Yep. I feel like Ben, like, we've seen this twice now of him. Like, ever since that game against Mr., where Mr. just zerged him with Royal Knights that were juiced up with Royal Bloodlines. Feels like Ben is just trying to perfect this strategy himself. He's like, you know, I could actually get a very easy invite to Warlaw if I keep doing this. And he might be right. Knights. Ooh, nice pinch by Lenok. Important to hit these numbers down, especially now that Ben has gone in for the Royal Bloodlines, so he wants the best bang for buck. Keep in the center. This is going to be very efficient. I like how Muslim intended for this as well. Like, he built these stables and archery ranges very early, but he built them in a line formation to allow for the keep next to them. Nice little detail to consider if you're playing French in this situation, because I've seen plenty of French players that the way they layer their initial base, their archery ranges especially, they're just kind of clustered or they're spread out in a weird way that isn't to enable this. It's an interesting detail to think about, because you might have the intent to end the game in feudal, but this is a small detail that doesn't impact your ability to do so, but does enable you to be more effective at the beginning of Castle Age, because you don't have to worry about setting up a whole new district to this around a keep elsewhere. Lancers trying to torch through. Army is moving in position. Royal Bloodlines is close to complete for the Muslim as well. 30 seconds out, so if Lenok wants to take the fight, he actually has to do it fast here. This is intentional. He wants to force the fight, because he knows what the Muslim's probably up to here. The longer he waits, the worse it gets for the Mongol here. Villager pull? What is that villager pull? He's actually going to get the what? Okay, that surprised me. I thought Lenok was going to flood through there, but he got paranoid. For good reason as well. He just built double treb, so if he didn't have the trebuchets, rushing through the lancers is good because they can just wreak havoc on the backside. But once you have the trebs, it means you're sacrificing them, because archers and knights will deal with these spear onlys. Swinging the spears. Putting the overtime in, building in the mangonels. Marching from the knights. Archers ready to fight. The mangonels didn't get complete here. Lenok, no! Oh, that's big. That's important right there. And look at that move around. The Muslim drags attention over the side, starts to torch them down. With the bonus damage out as they aren't fully constructed, the mangonels are going to go down. And the archers are going to clean up. A lot of knights are being sacrificed for this, though. He tries to complete the mangonel. It's going to be tight, but if you just get one tap out, it's done. And there it is. The taps are coming in now. The Muslim will force him to cancel. Lenok loses some resources in the process there. And now he'll lose the Fort Vanguard. Treb's targeted out. Spearman chasing after those few remaining knights, but more coming after that. There's more where this came from. And just like that, Lenok's army might be in trouble. Next wave coming in. But Arbalatriz in the mix with the archers now, so these units on the backside, they're not too flimsy up against the lancers. Knight push is struggling to keep up with the demand of this war, but it has to be said, Lenok is slowly but surely losing ground here. New wave coming in. Nice micro over the archers onto the spears. Arbiters weren't microed away, though, so they'll be taken out with the Lancers, and it looks like Lenok might be getting a second win here. And, oh my god, it's the gold. I was about to say, the Muslim, he's missing something here. It's the gold. There was a gap right there. That's the problem. And the outpost with the sprint was definitely adding a lot of damage into this. I definitely agree with that, but the issue there is the Muslim, he should have had a clean fight, but he didn't have a clean eco. You noticed it in the night count. The archers were never ending, but the knights led up for a little while there. But nice recovery. Ben back into the mixer here, and these outposts will be denied. Importantly, he gets through him fast as well, though. These Springles have been adding a hell of a lot of damage into this fight. Every 7 seconds, dishing out 60 damage, which even against these Royal Knights, as you can see, over 90% of the damage is going through, as they only have 5 range resistance. Wait, Ben? Okay, Ben is so fixated on pushing away reinforcements, he just sacrificed even more troops because he didn't immediately deal with the outposts. We'll be able to recover now. Ben, I think this is Imperial. It has to be, right? Like, there's no way you hang around now. You almost pop capped. You can approach your opponent's base, but you might as well get Imperial advantage as well. Lee. Wait, was his food missing? Oh, wow. I feel like a lot of these pastures were recent. There's one way to know. Wait, what? Yeah. I think he missed out on food here. And also, where are his wood lines at now? Like, they're moving out to dangerous locations, right? Yeah, they're almost dried up again. Misbalance on both sides, then. That's kind of crazy to think about how that ripples, right? Like, we talked about how the Muslim almost lost that fight because of the gold situation, but it seems like Lenok then had to let up because of the food situation, because he had a Lancer advantage. And although these Royal Knights are better than Lancers, the number difference could matter there, especially with the assistance of the outpost. The outpost that now, once again, Lenok is relying on. Arbiters and archers on the back line being targeted out by the Maganel. They're spread out in the meantime of the Knights dealing with these spearmen. Archers wrapped onto, but the Muslim, instead of taking out the spears on the front, he targets out the Lancers attacking him here. Knights will be able to wrap around on that single Maganel, which will allow him to actually re-engage in the main fight here. Villagers aren't able to keep it up, and it looks like more ground might be going the way of Ben. Troop count looking too good. Lenok is starting to bend under the pressure. The Muslim now getting the walls up, blocking his opponent in. But don't worry, Lenok. You don't have to worry about being isolated and all alone in here. Ben's going to come in and keep you company. It's a Muslim. Well, this is where you have to hold him. This is the issue. As he starts to flood through, keep in mind that Lenok has a lot of exposed eco, and you are the Mongols. You can spam outposts up the wazoo, but you cannot spam walls. You cannot easily stop raid-throughs from heavily armored units like the Knights. Speaking of which, those Knights have identified a high-value target over here. Courtesy of the Springles attacking the villagers building the walls. He knows about the gold line, and he's going to block off the outposts. That's dead, villagers. He just has to run away. The good news for him is the Yan movement speed does allow him to disengage. But now the gold for Lenok, he has finite reserves available, only 1,000 in the bank. Remember, folks, Lenok is still pushing a lot of Lancers here. So there's a heavy demand for that gold. Outpost targeted down. The Muslim never letting up. And now he can go for a tech up if he wants to. He's actually capped out. Lenok struggling to actually keep the number up in comparison. He's once again getting raided a little bit deep. Scouting vision really coming out for the Muslim, getting a lay of the lands here as he extracts the mid resources. And Lenok is in trouble. He needs to move that step readout away, but it's too late. And I don't know what you do now. Without the step readout, you're in trouble. Like, eco-wise, you're still trailing behind the Muslim by a notable number, about 27. And on top of that, you just lost your big leg up here with the 50% additional drop-off on the gold. You need to transition. You can't rely on Knights anymore. What? No, Lenok! He packed the car up! Oh, thank God he noticed. But, wait. No. Lee, no. Lenok, no, he done it again! Oh, that missed micro. That was a drag box that was not meant to include villagers there. And I think Lenok might be done here. It's hard to see how you easily recover at this rate with moves like that. If he can win this fight, maybe. Knights and Horsemen are struggling somewhat, but there's going to be a decent amount of them left. Lenok with a lot of idle eco right now, fighting tooth and nail to reclaim his step readout. He moves in for the rebuild now. That's more like it. Only a few archers really remaining here. It looks like Lenok will be able to hold Muslim slow on the reinforcements because Muslim, folks, has made his way up in Imperial. Was not expecting this golden opportunity, this golden egg to be laid on his lap. Because had he expected that, had he known that that villager pull would occur, the Muslim would have been likely to reinvest in the aggression because he would have been able to beat him out. But now he still can. The red pass aggressively placed in Lenok's base. No way to stop that. Now, all your gold are belong to me now. The keep crawl continues. The Magano line is being established in Lenok's base. Lee, he reclaims the step readout, but he loses his own base. Lee, Spearmen aren't going to cut it anymore. The red pass is a problem. If you dive it, you die. He needs Trebs. Trebs that he's struggling to afford because the gold situation. He only just rebuilt the step readout. Wood is also now an issue for Lenok as he's drained the wood lines. He's on straggler trees, remember. I don't know how he gets out of this. He needs to breach the walls. He needs to actually flood out here and get on these wood lines because without wood, everything falls apart. Think about what he's pushing here. Think about what he needs. He's pushing spears and he needs siege. Both of those are a heavy demand on your wood supplies. Demand's about to get heavier. Oh, the keep, it reaches the meat patty. I don't even want to look at Lenok's income on food. I don't even want to think about it. This is the crime. This is the Mongol crime. The one I talked about before. The one some of you may have heard me blab about on the weekend because it's such a big crime here. Lenok, the unforgivable crime. He tries to make the world's biggest hamburger, and as a result, all of his food supply is condensed on one location, now blocked out by a keep. Look at that number sink. Holy Mary, Mother of Moses, that is not pretty. He hasn't even shifted it. He's now finally doing it with some of them, but plenty of these pastures are still waypointed elsewhere. He finally shifts them to a different point. But that delay is going to cost him dearly. Wait, what? Oh no! They're prioritizing the food again. The keep can reach. Lee? Buddy. It's the AI, it's the auto behavior. Like, look what they do. They surround the sheep and they go across. He's got too many villagers here. I hate saying I told you, but I told you so. I've said about this before for good reason. It's so important. Like, and it's so easy to fix when you go multi-TC like this. Because you could just have half these pastures clicked here, maybe some extras clicked on the backside here, and you wouldn't lose efficiency because you actually commit a certain amount of villagers to each of these areas. It's a little bit more micromanagement, but you can see why it can be important, especially if you find yourself in a matchup where you start to come under pressure. This just really shut Lenok's eco down. It put him a mile behind. And it means that he's slowly going to continue to lose his base because now he can't afford Imperial and he can't afford PopCap. Look at his count right now. Meanwhile, Ben just takes his time. He's doing a victory lap around the map right now with these knights. Even got more pastures over here. This is crazy. Oh, apologies. Lee did sneak up Imp. Yeah, we were watching it. Why am I about, like, my brain sometimes? But, like, the value of Imp is discounted is the point to get to here. Like, he doesn't really get much out of this right now. His crossbows still aren't upgraded. He can't get into bombards. He can't afford them. So, like, in my eyes, this Imperial Age doesn't really do anything that he needs anyway. I think these keeps are, like, a bit too problematic, shall we say? And there's too many of them. The Muslim has really let up, but there's no reason to necessarily let up. He can end the game. And yep, there it is. In on the jugular there. Straight away on the step readout. Torches it down. Lenok, you can't even repair it anymore. And without that gold, finite resources, right? You've got free relics, but that's like... That's not going to be good enough, folks. You need a lot more trebs or bombards. You still need to elite up other upgrades. And in this situation, Leenock, he prioritizes elite army tactics with his crossbowmen are still not upgraded. The march in. The Muslim. Deep in. Onto your food eco. TC prioritized here. Landmark snipes coming through. Leenock slow to respond. How do you respond right now? Village is shutting down. Lee, he moves way up in Imperial. These spearmen, even with them being elited up, it doesn't feel good enough because look, the elite army tactics is still a whole minute away. And these knights are still ridiculously chunky. 364 HP each. Outpost also being torched down, keeps on the side. As soon as you kill a few knights, they're insta replaced here for the Muslim. Always trying to pop caps. Right now, Leenock just dancing to Ben's tunes. Oh my god, if it's not bad enough that you took his landmark away, you spit in his face with this as well. He goes onto the gold himself. Understands fully that Leenock, when you push this many spearmen, it's not because it's just a good counter to the knights. It's because there's nothing else you can do. The lay of the land really does show that. Knights looking to wiggle their way in as the TC is down. Only 2 landmarks remaining. They are on the same screen, all next to each other. The Muslim could probably make this quite easy with 2 bombards. But where's the fun in that, folks? You can't get villager blood on your lance if you go bombards. This way, you can have your fun with them. It's like a cat playing with a rat. Very small and insubstantial rat right now, which is what, which are the words I would use to describe Leenock's eco. As he's below half the villager count to Muslim, and look how bad this fight's going to be for him. The Muslim, these boys are so damn chunky that he doesn't care that technically spears counter knights. It doesn't play out that way. Re-engage, Brace comes out at least. He's willing to throw away his troops because he knows he can afford to replace them. The question mark in his mind is whether Leenock can. Looking at the numbers, I have to say no. Leenock, 50-50 split, but only pop cap at half. With such a small amount of villages remaining, with such a small amount of resources accessible for free, it's difficult to see a way back now. Trebs, like, this is the crazy part to me. Every time he gets these Trebs out, every time it feels like, oh, he got rid of a keep. I noticed 2 more being built up. And with that, the Muslim now raiding in. Because he drew the attention to the west side, because he drew Leenock away from defending his landmarks, now goes in for the jugular. Horsemen as well as knights, because now he just needs cheap crap to throw at the landmark snipe. The wraparound from the east side as well, as remember, he's got a base back here that's reinforcing. Starts to target out the white stupa. These choke points, maximum melee damage cannot be done by the spears. Deerstone on fire, not being repaired. Leenock looking like he's going to be left out to dry here. The Muslim low back off for a moment. It's just 1 landmark remaining. I think this is where we can start talking about like where this went wrong, and you know, I think it comes back to the beautifully highlighted point by Artie in the chat around like the miss macro. I caught the one from the Muslim. My boy Artie caught the one from Leenock. Like, that was a pivotal detail. That was an opportunity for Leenock to exploit because he mismanaged his economy back at home because he didn't have enough food to fuel the war machine. It slowed down his push, and once that push slowdown came through, the Muslim's economical exploitation of the map was too easy. His push was stronger. His villager count was better. And that difference allowed him to non-stop plow his way towards Leenock's base. It might not have been the cleanest way to win, with the unlimited horses being thrown at spears, but turns out Leenock didn't have enough time between assaults to sharpen those spears. As a result, will not be able to hold the Muslim at bay. Instead, he will just call GG.